milling machines, and they have a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. All right, but we'll just kind of go over the different parts and what you use them for. All right, so first thing we've got here is the on and off switch. There's actually two different directions. There's a forward and a reverse. For the most part on this machine, we usually always go in the forward direction. And then this right here is called the brake. And just like the name suggests, that's used to keep the machine, the spindle, from turning. And then this over here is the spindle speed dial. You can just put the speed dial, that's fine. And I have on here, there's a sticker that says motor must be running to adjust the speed. All right, it says it on the side of the dial as well. So at no point should you be cranking on that while the machine's off. It's got to be running to adjust the speed. This whole thing right here is called the head, just like we have on the lathe. Same thing. It's where the motor and the gears are basically located. Now there's an arrow pointing to the top. At the very top there's something called the drawbar, which is this guy here. This is what's used to keep the tools in the machine. All right, it's actually threaded on the end. Later on I'll show you how we're going to use these things. They're called collets, but basically that drawbar threads into the collet and pulls that up and holds the tool in the machine. All right. So, I mean, it's good to know what that looks like, so when you're tightening and loosening this, you have some idea of how it should be operating. All right. And then, just to show you a few things down here, this outer piece is called the quill. And then this inner one, which actually turns, I can't really turn it by hand. Well, here, I can turn the machine on for a moment. Okay. You can see that the quill does not spin. This is called the spindle. That's what it actually turns. I don't have an arrow by this, but this little knob is really important here. This is the quill lock. You can lock the quill at a specific height. You can go ahead and draw another arrow there. That's a really important one. This handle over here, which I do have an arrow to, we'll just call that the quill feed handle, to move the quill up and down. Don't let go of that unless you have the quill locked, because it will, here I'll just do a short distance, but I mean, it'll spring back. I mean, it's got a spring loaded, so hang on to it. All right. And then this little knob over here is the high and low lever, and you can actually switch between the higher speeds and the lower speeds using that. Alright, and I believe that's all on that first page. The next page, up at the very top here, we have this guy, which is a vise that you use to clamp pieces, hold it on the table, which I just said the name of the next thing. This big long thing here we call the table. These right here, I think they're called gibs, but the important thing is that they're used to lock the table in place. this one right here locks the table for moving left and right. So like if you were drilling some slots, cutting some slots forward and back, and you didn't want to move left and right at all, you could lock that in place, but it still moves forward and back. Now if you want to be able to move side to side, there's a lock over here. That keeps it from going forward and back. I can't turn that, but now I can move it side to side. And if you were drilling a hole, you could lock both. I could lock that one, and then move the quill up and down to drill my hole. All right. Let's see. Okay. The other arrows are basically pointing to the dials. Main thing I want you to know are the axes on the mill. Okay, so these are just like you learn in probably geometry class. On your paper, you've got the x-axis, you've got the y-axis up and down, and then I guess maybe forward and back. X-axis side to side, y-axis forward and back, and then up and down would be your z-axis. All right, and there's actually this readout here doesn't have the z-axis on it. We usually just use the dial right here, this guy, to determine our z value, but it does have an x and y axis. If I turn that on, you'll see, once it loads up, right now I'm moving the table side to side. Notice the x value is changing. I move it forward and back. Now my y value is changing. All right, so that first row is the x, second row is the y. Now going back to this, so you can move the quill up and down to affect the z-axis, but you can also move the whole table up and down, which is what this guy's for. All right, so this is for the I'm not sure what the technical name of it is, but the table lever, we'll just call that. I'll probably, when I quiz you on it, I'll just ask you what do those things do. We'll just call this one as the y-axis, and this one for the x-axis. And this whole thing right here is called the knee. And I'll give you one other one that I don't have an arrow for. This right here is called the saddle. And if you look at it from the side, it actually looks like a saddle that someone would sit in. It's actually this one right here. And if you look underneath it, it's curved just like a horse saddle. So the table sits inside the saddle sits on top of the knee, just like the knee that you bend. And those are the major parts of the mill.